Para muchos, un referente y líder de opinión en el mundo de la experiencia del cliente, miembro de la Customer Experience Professional Association y fundador de CX University. Recibamos con el más fuerte de los aplausos a Mohamed Latib, quien nos hablará de las dos caras de la centralidad del cliente.
These are my notes. I've been here since 8 o'clock this morning. And I took notes from all the speakers that were speaking. And I have to begin by telling you about my 5 wows. I don't mean to be metaphorical about wow, but I have 5 wows. The first wow is I'm amazed that you're still here. You've been here since 8 o'clock this morning. Typically, when I am the last to speak, the room disappears. So I am deeply grateful that you've decided to stay. I hope it'll be worth it for you. My second wow is to follow all these very distinguished presentations. I was most impressed. And so to follow them is a challenge, but one that I am prepared to take on and hope that you leave with a smile. The third wow, I'm a founding member of the Customer Experience Professionals Association. And I've attended every one of their annual meetings, and I am also the chair of the Philadelphia Local Network Event Committee. In all the 6 years of conferences that I've attended, sponsored by the globally recognized association, we've never had more participants in any event than what I'm witnessing today. And that itself to me is a marker of the interest that you have in customer experience. And I think that's quite remarkable. My fourth wow is a cultural experience, and that is that the Latin culture loves storytelling. And they do it with great exuberance. There's a lot of energy. And so I'm hoping that I will have been acculturated in the Latin culture by hopefully being exuberant. My fifth wow is in the last 24 hours, I have received and given more kisses than in 10 years. What a remarkable experience. So my emotional barometer has gone up. And if you notice, the theme in the entire day was around emotions. And I'm going to speak to that. There's going to be a significant element of seriousness about what I will share with you today, but I hope that in this journey over the next 40 plus minutes, I will capture your imagination. Let me begin by first telling you that I am like a design thinker, where the work I do is totally dynamic. It's agile and it's responsive. So something happened today, and actually very recently. I want to change the title of my presentation. And I'm going to do it. So I want you to erase customer from that title. It is really the two faces of centricity. How many of you are customers? Some of you are not. How many of you are employees? The same people? Those are the two faces, but they have distinctive properties that we want to explore today. What is it that allows us to be able to bring the two threads of customers and employees together in such a symbiotic relationship that you can create a totally customer-focused culture? And I will tell you at the outset, if there's one thing you should leave this room with today, you can never, ever, ever deliver an exemplary experience if you don't have exemplary employees. It's a very simple, common sense phenomena. Okay, so with that, let's journey on this path to the two faces of centricity. Do I have a clicker? I do? Did I leave it behind? Thank you. Voila. So the two faces have to do with customers and people, employees and customers. Just look, and by the way, I want you to understand from the outset, everything you're hearing is from an American perspective. So please add your cultural nuances. And by the way, I'm a global nomad. I speak 7 other languages and I've traveled all over the world. But I present to you material that comes very much from an American perspective, and I'd like you to please add your own flavor. So let's look at what we're talking about. These are the types of customers that we have today, at least in the American context, and you can affirm or disconfirm whether that's true for the Argentinian or the larger Latin American market. Listen to what they say. I want to communicate with you however I want and whenever I want. That's a demand that they're placing. Customers are saying, I want to share my ideas for product and services because I now have technology that allows me to move seamlessly across invisible boundaries. In fact, there are no boundaries, right? Technology has no boundaries. It allows us to traverse, unless there's a totalitarian boundary imposed for political reasons, there is absolutely no reason why we cannot. I want you to tell me what you're going to do about anything I say. So complaints, for example, we talk about, right, root cause analysis and closing the loop. Let's tell the customers we have heard them, and they want that. That's a demand they're placing on companies. When I complain on social media, and I do, I expect you to respond just as fast as I share. Look at the pressure that companies are facing. Who's going to respond to this new breed of customers? All of us, right? And who are we? Let's check us out. And by the way, I haven't read every one of those comments there, but is there anything you object to or think you should add? Does this sort of resonate even within the Argentinian culture, the Argentinian business landscape? I would submit probably very much similar. Let's look at you, the employees. I hope I don't fall over. Maybe I should be on stage. I want to grow and develop with new skills that are relevant to the market. I want to contribute my ideas for product and service. I want you to tell me what we are doing to improve. There's even a demand being placed on companies by employees, and I will submit to you that if a company ignores it, you are going to experience turnover. It's that simple. I have to jump ahead and share with you a case example of a company that I am completely enamored by in the United States. Most of you have probably used the products this company has produced, but probably don't know its name. So let me get a raise of hands. How many of you have heard about W.L. Gore and Associates? Anybody? Not a single person in this room. How many of you have worn products called Gore-Tex? Your sneakers? Rainproof gear? That's Gore-Tex. W.L. Gore and Associates produces Gore-Tex. W.L. Gore and Associates is a high-tech textile company. They make spacesuits. They even make such consumer products as Glide, the flossing tool that's sold now by Procter & Gamble. What's the point of bringing up W.L. Gore and Associates? I know of no other company from its inception in 1958 that decided the most significant component of its existence is going to rest on its employees. They started the concept of teamwork and collaboration before it even came out in textbooks. They live it. And they live it in ways that are quite interesting. I'll tell you more about the organization. By the way, all you have to do if you really want to know about W.L. Gordon Associates, go on YouTube. Put in W.L. Gordon Associates and see and hear what they say. They've gotten rid of hierarchies. There are no titles in the company. They're a privately held organization that Wall Street doesn't, still till today, has no idea what its revenues are. But I know it's in the multi-billion dollars. And they operate in small scale. When they have an organization that has reached the capacity of 200, 250, 300 employees, they stop there and they open a new facility because they want people to collaborate. It's certainly congruent with the idea of design approach to things. Innovation demands collaboration because there is not a single human being on the face of this earth that has all the answers. But to leverage the talent of every other person that's around you is an absolute imperative if you are going to be innovative. And W.L. Gordon Associates is innovative, without question. But why bother? Why even bother about employees and customers? We have enough evidence, and I don't need to repeat what all the preceding speakers have said. I think the fact that you are here today confirms that even you would agree that a focus on customers and employees has financial consequences. It's that simple. And for any of you that are familiar with, how many of you are familiar with the conference board? The conference board. So now there are two things you'll walk away with. The conference board is, in my opinion, the premier research organization that has a perfect marriage between academics, you know, the guys that create all these theories, and practitioners, executives who actually execute those theories. And they collaborate and they produce what I think is the most fantastic knowledge that has immediate applicability. And I will share with you more stuff about the conference board. This is fresh off the press. They just published a study that says employee engagement has a direct impact on financial performance. So just think about it. If you were to take what everyone has shared with you around customer focus, and what I hope you'll walk away with, and that is employee focus, that congruence will produce the kinds of financial results that every company aspires to achieve. It's not a complex formula. It's complex in its execution. Formulas are very easy to come up with. It's like great ideas. Great ideas you can come up with in a hurry. All you got to do is get your brains together and produce it. Great ideas are only as good as the brilliance with which they are executed. Otherwise, they're useless. So, we have a reason to bother, and if nothing, there's a great deal of wonderful altruistic objectives that my colleagues have shared with you about making life better. That's wonderful. There's no reason to even discard such a remarkable desire, but you also want to make money. So if we talk about customers and we talk about employees, there are naturally aspects of those two that we need to examine a little more closely. Why are customers putting so much pressure on us? Because they now have tools that we never had before. Look at the smartphone you folks carry. It's essentially a very powerful computer that you could not even purchase as computers even 15 years ago, right? You have remarkable capacity. For the first time in the history of human civilization, think about this. This is not a simple statement. For the first time in the history of human civilization, we are seeing the democratization of knowledge and information. Nobody has a monopoly anymore on knowledge, on information, and you know what else is quite remarkable? Access. Everybody has access. What is actually more remarkable is that the people in the developing world, that, by the way, have adopted more advanced cellular technology than the most developed nation in the world that produced cellular technology, the United States. There are folks all over the world now that have cell technology that allows them access like never before. Well, when you have that kind of access, you are creating a playing field. You all remember Friedman's book, The Flat World? It's now not only a flat world, which it still is, but it's a flat world that's turbocharged by technology. And when you have a turbocharged world, you have new rules of the game. And those new rules you saw partly in the type of customers and the type of employees and the sentiments that they express. I love the second set that has to do with organizational realities. In my entire professional life, and I've been in the customer experience business for over 30 years, I've been a strategy consultant for global corporations around the world. Nothing is more stark and obvious than the mindset of protecting and living in these silos. So you have major, major structural barriers that are going to interfere with this symbiotic marriage between customers and employees. And those barriers have to do with this mindset and the self-fulfilling behaviors that come from that mindset to protect your turf. But the one that's been mentioned more than I've ever heard in a conference today had to do with, I know you don't understand the language, this is my language because I just wrote a paper on sacred cows and moose. This term, infested with moose. Moose, and I know you'll recognize them, we've just given it a label, right? Moose are those useless, outdated policies that make no sense. Yes? Yes? Dare you challenge it, though, is another question. But we all acknowledge, right? Here, the examples were given. Almundo gave an example of the girlfriend, boyfriend going to Turkey and the earthquake. They lost everything in life. And the person on the other end is saying, pay if you want to go. Pay if you want to go. In view of clearly recognized realities. This was not a figment of that person's imagination. It was not fibbing about having lost everything that they possess. And the United example just continues to amaze me. You know, they have an out-of-court settlement already. There's no case going on. It's done with. They paid the doctor. They just won't tell us how much. Because the doctor and the decision is under gag order, which means you can never know how much he got paid. But look at the stupidity of an old practice. Their policy was $800. Do you know what the new policy is? $10,000. Imagine that. It was a case of really being penny wise and pound foolish, isn't it? They now have a policy, and by the way, that's spread. It's like a disease that's spread through the entire airline industry. Every airline has come back with a revised policy around overbooked flights. United amazes me. Here is a large conglomerate in the travel business. How many of you have read about United Breaks Guitars? Those of you who haven't, YouTube it. See how powerful this world is? Access, information, knowledge is available to us just like that. Go and check out David's video. David, I know David personally. David's guitars were broken in Chicago on the tarmac. He repeatedly, sincerely, genuinely asked United to pay him back, apologize for what they did. They refused. He put this video on. Within a week, it became the most viewed video, YouTube video, on YouTube. And he produced multiple videos because even after he put the first one on, United did not respond to him. So he had 3 videos put on. And in fact, he used his grandmother in one, and a Hollywood producer and director saw this and said, I want your grandmother in a movie that we're going to shoot in Montreal. So the grandmother did get a role in the movie. And of course, it doesn't matter if we believe in the value of a customer-focused culture if you don't have a unified view within the entire organization. You're going to experience a lot of hiccups. It'll be challenging for you to be able to get over humps. And then, of course, you know, this is one of the great tragedies about corporate life. We're always looking over our shoulders because we have inculcated a great sense of fear. And if you have fear, you're going to become increasingly risk-averse. And design thinkers will tell you that if you are going to be risk-averse, then you have a recipe for being stagnant. You have a recipe for being left behind. To take risks and to try and fail quickly and learn and try again, to iterate is itself a remarkable, energizing experience. It's sort of like changing my title. I now feel so much better about my presentation because I changed the title. And thank you for allowing me to do that. So these are the realities. We have a growing amount of power among our customers, and we have the paradox of organizational realities that create nothing but impediments to transform the culture of an organization that focuses on the customer. But some companies, and I'm going to show you one that's really quite heartwarming shortly, about the incredible capacity that we have to be able to step into someone else's world, and this was discussed by several speakers about the concept of empathy, the practice of empathy. If you step into another person's world, it's quite remarkable what you can achieve. I'll share that with you, and then you tell me whether I was off the mark. Fair enough? Promise? Yes? Okay, I'll hold you to it. I like Leo's engagement with you, right? Except Leo has a much better sense of humor than I do. So what is experience? Just think about it. Is it not the same? Remember, you're a customer and you are an employee, right? So what is employee experience? The sum of all experiences with an organization. What is customer experience? Sum of all experiences with a brand. It's one way to distinguish it, right? Okay. So what? Here are the common threads. I want you to think about this. Let's speak to the heart first, because everyone today has talked about the power of emotions, right? Customer experience is all about emotions. If you can hook someone's heart, it's like falling in love. If you can hook someone's heart, you've hooked the customer. You've hooked the customer not only to spend more, not only to be an advocate for your brand, but to keep coming back, right? As an employee, do you have a heart? As a customer, do you have a heart? Okay. As an employee, do you have a brain? As a customer, do you have a brain? You see, we have a cognitive process, right? We think. Now, if I can engage in practices around the discipline of customer experience that gets me to understand how you think and how I can influence your thinking, and if I'm successful at influencing how you think and how you feel, what do you think will happen to my behavior? It'll conform to those thoughts and those feelings, right? So do you think I want to come back to Buenos Aires because I love getting kissed? And by the way, I have no problems getting kissed by men. It's just fine with me. If you came to visit me in Philadelphia and you wanted to kiss me, I'd say, whoa. The women, no, come. The men, oh. Okay, because in the United States, we have some very clear boundaries. It's a cultural phenomenon. So if you think about this, isn't there some common sense then in how we ought to strategize, the kinds of processes we need to put in place, the kinds of properties that we need to advocate? Anytime that you advocate, and I would say think about this, anytime that you are advocating to build a customer experience focus, advocate also to build an employee-focused culture. Because the two are symbiotic. It's that simple. I had the pleasure of hiking twice through the Amazon, and I experienced symbiotic life in remarkable ways. And let me just give you one little story. So I was hiking through the forest, and the guide stopped and he said, I want you to watch this. Look at this tree and notice what's happening around the tree. So we looked at the tree and we noticed that this is the rainforest where it grows, right? It's almost dark during the day. We noticed that around the tree, there was no growth whatsoever, which is unusual. So he takes out his machete and he smacks the tree trunk, and millions of ants come out. And he said that's a symbiotic relationship between the insect world and the biological world. They have an arrangement. The tree says to the insect community, keep my place free of competition for the nutrients, and I'll let you live in my trunk. What a remarkable arrangement. Now imagine if you can create that kind of symbiotic relationship in an organization, and I would say that your competition would become irrelevant. By the way, that statement I just made should immediately hearken you to the phenomena of blue ocean thinking. How many of you are familiar with blue ocean strategy? Blue ocean thinking is exactly that. How do I do this so well, that the competition becomes irrelevant? And that's what you want, isn't it? And I'll talk about competition again in just a moment, because it is itself forcing us to build what we're talking about here. Centricity means that we have to make the customer the center of gravity in the organization, and we have to actually push that center out of the company. This is what we mean by an outside-in approach, right? We push the center of gravity out. We want to understand the customer. We want to understand the markets we're serving. We want to be able to embrace them in such a way that they become ardent advocates of our brand. So how do we create this culture? Well, there are several steps, and because I know most of you, and perhaps I'm being heroic, may not be as fluent in English, and you're certainly probably more fluent in English than I am in Spanish. So let me share this with you. You need to build a team that champions the cause. You must create a shared understanding of what it means to deliver an experience. That itself, by the way, is a very creative, energizing, and pleasant experience to ensure that you are delivering. And then, of course, I've talked about alignment. You need to engage and align employees in such a way that you have a cohesive force that's energized. And by the way, I will tell you this. The delivery of customer experience does not reside in a pocket of the company. It doesn't reside at a level in the company. It should be part of the entire DNA of a company. Everybody in an organization is responsible for customer experience. Even that deep and distant clerical worker who's putting together a telephone bill. The person never meets the customer. But you know what happens when there's a mistake on your telephone bill? You blame the brand, right? You attack and get angry with the brand. But it's an individual deep in the organization that perhaps made an error, a mistake, perhaps an innocent mistake, but doesn't even know the impact that that has. They need to be involved as well. So just as we talk, for instance, about making sure we tell the customers we've heard them and we're doing something about it, we should do the same with our employees, however deep they may be in the organization's system. Language is so important, so important. Make sure you speak a language that people understand. That is so critical. And so you need to ensure, if you're going to build a customer-centric culture, that everybody understands. And the idea of listening, you know, very simple. How many of you have been taught how to listen? I mean, literally formal training on how to listen. Formal training on how to listen. All right, a handful, right? I can count you. Probably less than the number of fingers I have in both my hands. Isn't that interesting? Is that not an interesting fact by itself? That we really do not understand how to listen. Now think about how important it is. The only way that we can understand anybody is to listen. Not to sound. Listen to meaning. Listen to understand. And that's therefore very critical. So you need that. And of course technology is clearly important, and you need a phenomenal intersection between technology and your culture. So let's talk about a couple of case examples. We've heard about Zappos, so I won't tell you much more about Zappos. I probably won't even tell you much about USAA. Have you heard of USAA? Some of us have that are familiar with the United States. USAA is an organization that provides services for the American Armed Forces, veterans, insurance, health care, whatever you want, mortgages for homes. It's really a comprehensive organization that supports veterans, and they are by every standard in the customer experience world par excellence. And again, USAA just has some remarkable capacity. And here's their focus. Their focus, look at this. Their focus is take care of your people first and foremost. Of course, their focus is on customers as well. And Zappos, of course, we've heard about. But let me tell you about Umpqua Bank. And this ties right into the presentation this morning on NetWest that was shared about how they even support bereavement, right? Umpqua Bank. How many of you have heard of Umpqua Bank? Look at what they call themselves. They call themselves the greatest bank in the world. And you've never even heard of them. How about that? It's a regional bank on the west coast of the United States, headquartered, coming out of, I don't even know from where, which state? It's near Oakland. What state is there? You know that part of the world. It'll come to me in a minute. I'm having a senior moment. They call themselves the greatest bank in the world. But look at, that's a bank, that's a branch bank picture. Here is their hook. Their hook is when you enter our bank, it's like entering your family room. They have sofas, they have art, they have colorful walls, but here's the big kicker. They have meeting rooms available for free for any member of the community. You want to have little league meetings and you need a space, they have meeting rooms available for free. Now think about it. If I am a parent of my child who's part of a soccer camp, we all know soccer, we don't know baseball, right? We're part of a soccer camp, and I'm a dad or a mom, and I want to get involved with other dads and moms about arranging a soccer league, and we need to meet and make arrangements for parties, for whatever it is we want to do. We need a meeting room. There are going to be 50 of us. Go to Umpqua Bank, no problem, like that. As long as the meeting room's available, anytime you want, any time of the day, even on weekends, they'll open it up. Now, do you think that they are going to tap into your emotions when they touch your child's heart in this wonderful way? Do you think you're going to become a customer? They are the fastest growing financial institution in the history of the banking world. In the history of the bank, they're not the largest bank. They're the fastest growing bank in terms of deposits and assets. Quite remarkable because of their profound commitment to customer experience. Look at this. This is, to me, a remarkable picture. Have you seen this picture before? No? Look at this picture. This is customer experience, right? Look at this, MRI equipment, right? Now imagine if you're old enough to have a 6-year-old child who's got to have an MRI of the brain done because they suspect the child has cancer. You're going to put that, and if you are in an MRI machine, you've got to sit still. If you move around, you can't get a good image, right? This is an engineering product, a remarkable engineering product. What a remarkable gift we have to be able to see what's going on in this thing we call the brain, this fluffy little tissue. So, step into the shoes of that 6-year-old child. As, by the way, one of the engineers that created the MRI machine did. Walked the world of a 6-year-old child. And let's see what he produced. Watch this. For me, this is remarkable. That person understood the child's world and said, this is first of all, a child that probably has brain cancer, a child that's scared, nervous, anxious to be away from mom and dad, has to sit still in a narrow, almost claustrophobic channel for some time. So what did they do? They created that MRI room that even had the sound of crickets, even the smell of fire in a campground. Isn't that remarkable? This is customer experience. Do you think children that walk into this MRI machine are going to move? They'll sit still. Do you think they'll feel safe about being away from mom? Oh, this is an adventure. I'm going. Mom, see you later. Quite remarkable, isn't it? This is a phenomenal example of how you are able to engage people through every sensory modality we have as human beings, and we have 5 of them, right? If you can capture people's hearts and minds and their behaviors by tackling all sensories that we have, you've got it made. Nice picture, isn't it? You want a copy? You got to give me a kiss. The other face. Is about people, employees. Look at the definition, and I told you about the conference board, and a conference board produces fantastic stuff, really fantastic stuff. Unfortunately, you can only have access to their fantastic stuff if you pay fantastic money. Let me read this to you literally. Employee engagement is a heightened emotional, the heart, and intellectual, cognitions, connection that an employee has for his or her job, organization, manager, or co-workers that in turn influences him or her to apply additional discretionary effort to his or her work. I will emphasize the last underlined word there, discretionary. Let me give you a very simple way of identifying whether or not your colleague, employee is engaged, is when they go the extra mile. That's what I mean. Discretionary effort says Yes, my contract with you is I stop work at 5. You don't pay me after 5. But someone who's engaged would stay till 10 and not complain because they love what they do. They enjoy what they do. If you have an engaged population, you've got a lot going for you. And I should tell you, by the way, the most recent global study done by Aon, large consulting firm and conference board, says globally engagement is going down. Globally, engagement is going down, which means that we have a lot of work to do. So here's a measure, and the reason I want to share this with you, and you are free to have access to this, if you want to measure employee engagement, 8 questions is all you need. Now, many of you have heard about the Gallup polls, right? Gallup 12. In my view, in my humble view, this is a much more powerful, research-based, validated, and reliable set of questions that tap into those 3 dimensions of engagement with a very simple set of 8 questions. And it is culturally neutral. You can use the same questions anywhere in the world because they have affirmed that there's no cultural bias around these properties, these 8 properties that make up the engagement questionnaire. Oh, my time is up. End. Why does it matter? Well, it's so obvious, right? It's so obvious. I would insult your intelligence by sharing the obvious, but I'm listing it anyway because it improves productivity. It certainly has an influence on financial performance. And look, by the way, retention, do you know how important it is to retain your employees? I was mentioning W.L. Gordon Associates. They are the envy of the whole corporate world. You know what their retention rate is? 97%. 97%. Do you have any idea how significant that is? And the 3% attrition they have is either voluntary or if they lose their place in a team because they cannot contribute because of skill shortage or skill gaps and are given the opportunity to find development for themselves and then find a team that will take them, they're asked to leave. 97%. Remarkable. Show me a company that has a 97% retention rate, and I will show you another W.L. Gordon Associates. This, by the way, is from my own work, not my work, my company's work. We do a lot of work for the Project Management Institute, and this is just an example of data we used for 3 years. And we've done their studies of both customer, in that case member, because they're a nonprofit professional association of well over 1 million members throughout the world, and we studied their member satisfaction, member engagement, and looked at their employee engagement, and look at how they run in parallel, which also affirms the whole idea of engagement. Here's a remarkable organization, Robert Half. Robert Half believes that if you have happy employees like Zappos, you know Robert Half is a placement company, right? Believes that if you have happy employees, you're going to have happy customers. And so as far as they are concerned, they really support their employees, and they even recognize work-life balance. You know what's interesting is I'm working right now for a company as I'm speaking, apart from Delaware North that I just mentioned a moment ago. There's another company who's exhibiting out here in the room called Crow Horwath. Crow Horwath is a risk management company. There are 4,000 employees around the world. I'm doing a project for them, and they also believe in exactly the same thing. And they are a mobile, agile, stay at home, work from wherever you want. We really don't care. They don't have offices except for meetings, but otherwise employees work from home, from bus stations, airports. It doesn't matter as long as you get the job done, right? But look at what they do. Apart from what they do, the expression of what they do is in all these properties that we're going to talk about in terms of employee engagement. If you want to identify what it is that's going to help drive engagement, look at these variables. Sylvia, we were talking at lunch. Mastery, autonomy, purpose, that comes out of Daniel Pink's book called Drive. Look at those variables. Trust and integrity, the nature of the job. In other words, the job's got to be meaningful to me, right? Don't get me to do mundane, stupid, boring stuff because then I'll kill myself and you'll get nothing out of me. Give me opportunities to grow. Let me become proud. Let me engage with my colleagues. Give me development paths so that I can grow as a human being. And I think someone's sending me a message, stop. Have a personal relationship with your boss, etc. All of these things are very, very important. Practical stuff. CX does not begin and end at the front line. Keep that in mind. Everybody's involved. Otherwise, forget it. Customer experience is very important. Customers at the expense of employees is a big mistake. CX should never be thought of as a cost center. It should be thought of as an investment for a profit center. Create a culture of empathy. And by the way, you know, Zappos is fantastic with this. They have their call centers. You know how all call center personnel usually have a script? If this, then you say this. If this, then you say this. If this, then you say this. I become an automated machine rather than a human being. Zappos just got rid of it. Zappos says no scripts. Take care of the customer. You know that they even have a record. You know what's the metric they use in call centers to determine whether or not you're doing well? Is how long you stay on a call with a customer, right? The less time, the better off you are paid. In Zappos, they have some of their call center people that spend 5 hours on a phone call, one phone call. And you know what? They don't mind it. They say, it's okay, we're taking care of the customers. I'm almost done, folks, almost done. So this is my mapping. I think you need to have a customer journey map and you need to have an employee journey map. The customer journey map many of us have heard about. Let's talk about organizational variables and let's map the employees. And by the way, when we do these mappings and we do measurements, let's make sure we do it consistently and continuously because the outcomes are the same, whether it's customer or the employee. Similar outcomes, different impact, but similar outcomes. And let me finish with this last slide. I think it's the last slide. The most succinct, the most remarkable integration by a company of the two faces. Do you know who this is? Ritz-Carlton. Look at how they treat their employees. Our ladies and gentlemen serve our ladies and gentlemen, our customers. Respect for their employees, respect for their customers. And let me tell you how far they go. Do you know that every employee at the Ritz-Carlton has the authority to make a $2,000 decision? So if the maid that's cleaning my room at a Ritz-Carlton facility sees that I'm very upset about something and I've been there for 5 days and my bill is $2,750, she can walk down with me, or he, whoever the case may be, can walk down with me to the counter and say to the person on the other side, forgiven $2,000 in their bill. No questions asked. I walk out with a $750 bill. Now, Ritz-Carlton will conduct an analysis. And let's say they found out that it was the wrong decision by the maid. They don't get punished. They say, what did we learn? If it's the right decision, they ask the same question, what did we learn? How remarkable is that? That's the two faces, nicely married. I must tell you, it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you for your attention. Any questions? I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm also happy to take as many kisses as you want to give me. Ah, yes, Sylvia, please. Cecilia. Oh, Cecilia, I'm so sorry. Sylvia is the person that followed from Al Mundo, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry, Cecilia.
Why do you think employee engagement is going down globally?
You really want me to tell you the truth?
Yeah.
Because I think leadership is stupid. The question is, why is engagement going down globally? I think it's because of the bankruptcy of leadership. There's no other explanation. It's the bankruptcy of leadership. You are not seeing the kind of leadership practice that supports employees in a way that produces engagement. Yes, it is very sad. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.